7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another interview series with the Rawlings Tigers. My name is David Birkby, and I have on the call today DJ DeWees and Tim French from the Southern Indiana Tigers. What's going on, guys?
Hey, Dave.
David, how's it going?
Good, man. Good. Other than the snow on the ground, and it is freezing cold. I can't stand it. I'm ready for warm weather.
I hear you there.
But so we know DJ's background because he's been on the interview series with Spiker before. And Tim, we don't know your background, so if you could, before we kind of jump into some questions and cover some pitching topics, just fill us in on your background.
Sure, absolutely. Like all of us, probably been around the game since I was about 3 or 4 years old. I ended up at Indiana University Southeast here in New Albany as a pitcher only. That devastated me at the time, and ended up having a good time being a pitcher only. Because for all you pitchers only out there, when you're not throwing, you're not pitching that day, it's a lot of fun to sit in the dugout and just be a fan and be a cheerleader. But and then I've been around the game since graduating from there, mostly doing pitching lessons, that kind of thing, and then hooked up with DJ 5 years ago, DJ. With the Tigers, and he invited me on to kind of co-pitching coordinator kind of role with DJ, and I've been with the Tigers ever since. And I coach our 16U mock team. My stepson is a catcher and middle infielder for that team. So having a good time. Yeah.
And then you work with all the pitchers in the for the Southern Indiana Tigers?
Yeah, so I do some youth arm care and velocity classes, as well as our high school, and then any kids that are in and out for lessons and that kind of thing. So
awesome. Well, then let's just jump on in. So today, guys, we have, I guess, a totally different bunch of questions here. Some kind of revolve around questions that I hear from parents all the time, that I've heard over the last 11 years of working with pitchers from ages 9 to 18U. Some are just industry topics that you hear on social media day in, day out. Like we'll start with the first one here. The first one I want to talk about is the sexy word that we all hear every day with pitching, and that's philosophy. And it seems to be the only thing that people care about. Definitely as they get older, definitely as they get into the high school ages. And it's almost how, if you ask a player, like, hey, what do you think about that dude on the mound? Well, he throws hard, so he's got to be good, right? And they kind of associate with how hard they throw with how good of a pitcher they are. So my question is to you, Tim, because I have an answer on this, so I want to hear you first. If you had like a pie chart example with everything that a pitcher can do well, how much of that pie is velocity, and how much do you emphasize?
Well, I'll start out by saying it's the game we play right now. So with our high school guys, we talk a ton about velocity. But we also, it's a small sliver of the pie though too. We're really big on pitchability. Can you pitch? We all know guys out there that throw hard. They have the stuff to get hitters out, but for whatever reason, they don't win. They don't compete. They're not a bulldog. So you can have the stuff all day, and the stuff will get you to a level, right? And that velocity is going to get you there. So we have that talk with our high school guys. But we try to hit the youth first. We're really big on trying to break free of those constraints. I think sometimes sometimes kids watch TV. They think they know what they see from a pitcher. We're going to mimic that. And we get very robotic with our motor patterns and motor movements, right? So we're really big on trying to break free of those constraints and saying, hey, let's be athletic, let's be explosive, let's be efficient. How can we do that? How David Birkby does that's going to be different than how Tim French does that. And I think velocity is a byproduct of that, right? It's a result of that. So we work on it. We talk about it. We have pitch logic. We have our pocket radars. We touch on it. It's not out all the time, but it's something we definitely talk about. Again, it's the game we play, right? If I'm a scout and I go watch a high school game, there might be a guy throwing 92 that goes 4 innings, throws 120 pitches. He walks 6 guys, and then the guy throwing 82 who throws a shutout. But that scout's going to probably talk to the 92 guy. We want to work on that velocity, but I think pitchability is just as big and most important too.
Where do you see the disconnect? Because when I talk to a high school arm in particular, and we start talking about pitchability and creating movement and locating the zone, getting ahead, it's almost as if they tune you out. They don't want to hear that first. So then you kind of come into the conversation first with velocity and, okay, we're going to get you here, but then we're going to back down a little bit. Okay, we're not going to go all in on velocity because we've certainly seen those kids that's all they care about. They will just throw and throw and throw and try to get the highest number. They don't even care if they have a 3-to-1 walk to strikeout ratio. They care nothing about that. So where do you kind of find, how do you approach the teaching side of things to get both out of those kids?
It's a good question. And that's the game is there right now. Now, having talked to some college coaches, of course, if you follow anything MLB wise, Theo Epstein's talking about trying to change the game and getting the game the pendulum to kind of swing back a little bit. I think hitters in an early age are seeing top end velocity more than ever before, right? I mean, that's how it happens. So it's not uncommon for a high school kid to see 88 as a sophomore. It's not uncommon for a college hitter to see 95. So I think at some point that Greg Maddux, that Kyle Hendricks, those guys that throw mid 80s, but everything's moving and they're locating 3 and 4 pitches and they can throw a curveball in the 3-1 count and a change up at a full count. I think that's coming back. How soon, I don't know. So it's trying to convince guys. And then I steal stories all the time, from different college coaches I've heard. It might be a single A minor league coach, and we all throw 92 to 95. What's going to separate us at that point? Your ability to throw that changeup, your ability to get hitters out, your ability to compete on the mound and want to win every pitch. So the more we can bring that in to especially our high school arms, the better off we're going to be. And then of course these showcases and things, right? I mean, if I want to see your curveball, yeah, I want to see the movement. Can you throw the darn thing for a strike? Can you throw your changeup for a strike? So trying to convince them, but it's hard. It's hard. It's what they see on TV.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, I just saw, so we're in the middle of February here in the winter, and PBR, Prep Baseball Report, just had their massive, I mean, we both had our own scout days, and our guys put up huge numbers at those scout days. And then I see the PBR Super 60, which showcases the top 60 seniors for the MLB draft, just happened this past weekend on Super Bowl Sunday. I want to say 15 high school arms went 94 plus.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to me. It's all a trickle down effect. So if you got 15 94 plus guys, and there's way more of them out there, every pro guy is throwing 95 to 100.
Yep.
And then now you got your Kyle Hendricks of the world getting guys out because he can just throw a changeup, and Devin Williams throwing a changeup that has that much vertical and horizontal drop to it. It's coming back. And so
yep.
it's a curious how it goes in those pendulum swings. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. I agree.
What's your thought on it, DJ? How do you guys implement velocity with the Southern Indiana Tigers?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tim touched on it. On the pie chart, it's on there because it's a topic, and it's also a topic because, when we're trying to get guys to the next level or get them prepared for a showcase, those are some of the first numbers, the measurables that are actually looked at. But the reality of it is, when we talk a lot about velocity here, and I talked about this with Spiker on the 2 interviews ago, one of our biggest focuses is the velocity over a period of time is what we're looking at. So the warm up and the cool downs, because I'm not saying anybody can go out one time and throw at 90, but if you are a 90 guy, can you throw 90 in the 4th inning? Tim talked about control and all the different stuff, and all the body movements that go in line with that. And that's one thing that I think people, I don't know, maybe don't soak in a lot of times when we talk about our velocity program, is the reality of what we're looking to do is create their body to throw in a safe motion for a long period of time. Not how hard can you go out and throw it and pull every, muscle in your body. I mean, Tim and I aren't here running 60s against each other one time to go as fast as we can and pull every muscle in our body. We want to be able to go out there and show them how to get prepared for the long haul. And also, like I said, back to that on the velocity, yeah, it's a piece of the pie because it's a measurable. I agree with Tim that, the Maddux of the world, I think, would still be very, very effective, but they're just not going to get the same amount of looks. And so, to try to get these kids prepared, velocity is something we want to try to, add to their arsenal for sure.
So tying that into the next question I have, you'd mentioned something there, DJ, that obviously we want these guys to be able to throw with velocity, but we want them to be able to do it in a healthy manner. Some to where they're not going to just throw it and in the term blow it, blow their arm out. So we are real big on, I've implemented with our St. Louis guys, a arm care program that is both pre-throw and post-throw, and then there's build-up phases to it, to where, before they even touch a baseball, they're going through 20, 30 minutes of pre-work. And then after they throw a baseball, they're doing 10 to 15 minutes of cool-down work. And at a young age, players what are they going to do? They're going to show up at the field, they're going to put their cleats on, they're going to run out, they're going to start throwing. They don't even know what they're doing. But as they start to get older, they have to prepare their arm to do that. Otherwise, they're just a ticking time bomb before they basically tear something, hurt something, or just get so dead armed that they can't do anything. So my question is, how do you guys emphasize arm care with your guys? And can you give some little tips or ins and outs to a player as to how to approach that?
Sure. Yeah. And so, we have two phrases that we use a lot. I'm sure you guys do in St. Louis. One is we're very pro throw. We believe in the Nolan Ryan philosophy. We believe in knowing the difference between throwing and pitching, right? Those are two totally different things. So we're very pro throw. I'm 42 years old. If I work out once every 2 weeks, I'm going to be constantly sore and I'm not making any gains, right? So we try to use that same analogy of we want to throw as frequently and as often as we can, and then listening to our arm. And the other one is, we get loose to throw. We don't throw to get loose, right? So the 10-year-olds, it's the coach says, go get loose. They grab a buddy, they go grab a ball, and they go throw for 3 minutes in the outfield. They max distance at about 60 feet, and they say, Coach, I'm good. No, we're not, right? And so we try to implement that. The goal is I would love to go into our facility and see a 10-year-old who's there with his team for practice, or there on his own, and we go over to the pitching side of the facility and they're doing it on their own. I don't see that with 10-year-olds yet, but we're seeing it with high school kids, right? They're getting out the foam roller. Of course, they know the band routine, and there's so many, and there's dozens and dozens of exercises we can do there. But they know that we believe in that. We use those phrases all the time. And of course, the post, throws, we try to mix those up as much as we can so they're not mundane and same old, same old. So we've got a long list of things that we have for kids too, with that. And so we stress the importance. So when we go through an arm care program, we tell them that the pre and post is just as important, if not more, than the throws that they do. DJ, you want to add to that?
I think one of the things that's so funny as we talk about it is as we get older or become fans of the game and have, children or just the guys that we've been fortunate enough to coach, and you go to a baseball game, you go to a professional game, you go to a college game, us as the dads or the baseball fans, we want to get there like an hour and a half early, right? I want to watch how these guys throw. And, if I got my wife and my girls, they don't want to see any of that stuff. It's not sexy to them at all to see any of that. But like, it is amazing to me to know like how many balls an infielder takes a day, how many cuts a big time slugger takes, and how the guys get out there and warm up. And, you see guys out there, catchers in full gear doing 60-yard sprints over and over and over again. And you're kind of like, I'm looking at my child or, who might be with me, and I'm like, that guy's making X millions of dollars, and he's doing this 162 times a year and not including all the other things. And it's just funny, like, to be able to go out and see these guys. And like, if I could get anything across to the players and the people that we work with, go watch that. It starts at high school. A lot of high schoolers do so well at, getting warmed up and everything with their coaches. And then college, we're fortunate enough here, a couple of colleges work out at the lumberyard. And you're coming into a batting cage that they throw, and I'm watching guys do all these calisthenics and get loose and stretching just to take a round of BP, and then, then talking about major league. And I wish these were the things that we could get across, not just here, to the whole baseball world of, what is really needed and what is the next levels. And those are the things that you're looking for. And that's the preparation you need. to become a better player. It's not the 30 or 40 swings you take in the cage. It's 30 minutes before you get in the cage. And that's, of course, easy to say with hitters, but also absolutely with pitchers. So,
Yeah.
The routine is the biggest separator that I see. What you just talked about, that is when I start to think that a kid is starting to figure it out. When he buys into his routine, he doesn't have to go to you before throwing and say, "Hey, coach, what do I need to do?" He's got it figured out. He knows what works for him. He is serious about it, and he sticks to it every single time. Those are the guys, especially on the mound, that you just see them like, before a game, they're there an hour and a half ahead. They've got all their equipment, like you said, Tim, the foam rollers, the J bands, the shoulder tubes, the everything and anything that he uses for his daily routine. And he is so diligent about what he is doing that he is so prepared mentally for that game. And then after he throws, he goes immediately to his post throw, and then it's his running, then it's his workout routine, then it goes into his nutrition, and then all of a sudden he's all encompassing, and he's making these jumps and gains that everybody else is wondering why he's doing it.
well, I think one thing, David, that I would add just to that is when we had our scout day, just like yours, like some guys performed and overperformed. And I don't think that Tim and I were very surprised because we get to see these guys that are in here. Whether it's going through our arm care program in their lifting or just in their knowing what they do on a daily basis or a weekly basis and how they've been working out, for them to get the gains and show up with some of the numbers. I mean, Tim and I get together and we're constantly like, guys that we've had for 3 or 4 years that are like, watch, it's about to click, like you don't put in this much work and then we see it. It's like it's all going to click at one point in time because they take the pre-throws, the pre-workouts, and the post-throws and stuff like that very seriously. You can tell the talent that will just go out there sometimes and just pick up a ball and be like, man, this kid's really talented. You can tell, I think, 3 to 4 years prior, or the couple years, like, I don't know when it's going to click, but all of a sudden, like, there's going to be this massive gain. And a couple of the kids at our scout day, we were actually able to see that. And not even sometimes it might need to be Tigers, maybe guys that have just been coming to us. And we've just been fortunate enough to see some of that. And Tim and I have conversations, and I think that's such a good job of what we've talked about here, of putting it all together with all the tools and different things. But I think the people that are paying attention, like us three at our respective places, really notice it, and we're like, it's coming. And it's always nice too when we get to talk to other people and say, nobody's going to outwork this kid, nobody's going to, that's it's easy to put our endorsement on kids like that for sure.
So, and that kind of it takes us to the next question that I want to get to in the topic, because
I'm leading in real good.
What's that?
I'm leading in real good to these.
You are, dude. You're teaming up. So you got all these guys who, and it's of no shock, they put in the work, they put in the effort, they work their way up through the movement patterns. They're strong physical kids. They do all the right pre and post throw. And then the next separator that I see in terms of kids, and this one is honestly one of the hardest ones to teach, and certainly one of the things that I consider sorely lacking in the youth game today, and that's the ability to compete, and especially the ability to compete pitch to pitch. I see players nowadays that almost forget that that's a part of the game, and definitely coaches forget that. So where you see a kid who can be rolling, doing well, throwing, good plus off speed, located in the zone, and then a couple bad things happen, and boom, he's out of the game with a crooked number on the scoreboard, and he has no idea why. And so that is something that I know we harp on with our pitchers, and we talk about, what's the most important pitch in the game? It's the next one. It's always the next pitch. It's that one pitch mentality. So do you guys have some approaches to that you guys talk to your players with?
Yeah. And I know for a lot of kids, getting them to understand the difference between like a mental approach, like the breakdown that you're talking about, umpire called that ball on the outside corner, called it a ball. I just walked the kid. Now my shortstop just boots one. Now I got first and second, and all hell's breaking loose. So knowing the difference between the mental side of it and really learning how to compete. And the compete side, I think, is tougher to teach because you have to hate to lose. And I use that example with my guys all the time. When my stepson was 5 and we played basketball outside, I might let him score a couple buckets, but there's a real good shot that I'm going to block his shot. I mean, I'm throwing his ball into the trees, and I'm going to win 24-4. And I let him score 4 just so I don't completely break him, right? I hate to lose at anything I play, and it doesn't matter. You have to hate that, right? You have to hate to lose, and that has to be something you're willing to do. And so for me, it's when we're throwing bullpens, and it's really hard to simulate in-game situations, but we really harp on every pitch has a purpose, right? Don't do what I did in high school because I didn't have a good pitching coach, and they'd say, hey, Frenchie, go throw 40 pitches in the bullpen. And if you would have asked me back then, Tim, what'd you work on? I would have said, I have no idea, right? Maybe I messed with a knuckle curve. Hey, my splitter looked okay. Did I really try to locate anything or do anything? So we try to really teach 3 basic, pitching philosophies that I'm sure, I mean, it's no secret, right? And the first one is first pitch strikes. The second one is winning the race to 2, right? We're going to get to 2 strikes before 2 balls. And then the last one is we're going to get as many outs as we can in as few number of pitches. So inning, when we talk an inning for a high school kid, we're talking hopefully 15 to 17 pitches. And then practice those in the bullpen, right? So let's practice that. Let's go 3 pitch sequences. Did we get to 2 strikes before we got to 2 balls? If we did, hey, let's work on a back point curveball. Let's work on a fastball away. Let's work, so being able to compete in a bullpen and not just throw your 30 pitches or 40 pitches or whatever the coach told you, I think is super important. But the mental side of it, that I think you can teach that, and I think that takes time. But you got to be a competitor, and if you're not, if you don't hate to lose, that's tough to teach.
That is, it's getting harder and harder. I mean, I just don't see. And maybe you guys see it differently. I don't see kids hating losing anymore as much as they used to. Or definitely as much as when, I guess, and you hear it all the time. Okay, when I played, I hated to lose, and I hated losing more than I even enjoyed winning. But with all the other distractions that kids have these days in terms of their cell phone and everything and how they garner information so quickly, it's almost as if, I lost, game's over, what are we doing now? And there's a phrase so I got the pleasure of coaching with a former college coach the last 8 years with the Tigers here in St. Louis. His name is Brian Unger. And he implemented a system with our guys that I thought was really, really neat in terms of just teaching them how to, I guess, how to compete, and then how to understand how to deal with adversity, and then how to get over it and make the next step forward. And he had talked about when a player ties his shoes and he's ready to go, you got to be locked in for that entire game. Ups, downs, good, bad, whatever happens. And let's say that player has a bad game. Okay, he wants you to leave your shoes on for as long as it takes. No other player is allowed to go up to you to bring up anything else. You're not allowed to talk about any other games because you need to be in your thoughts about that game. You need to think about what went wrong, what went good, where did it go down, and then how can we get over it. And if that takes you 3 hours, that takes you 3 hours. If that takes you 1 hour, that takes you 1 hour. If it takes you 10 minutes, it takes 10 minutes. But you're going to stay in those shoes until you're ready to leave that field. Okay? And when we started to implement that, I think players started to overall understand, hey, I just did get my butt kicked there. And some things that I could have handled a little bit better, I sure didn't. And how can I handle it better next time? When we did that, it certainly changed the way I think kids, from a perspective standpoint, handled that game. And then the next time they came out, it was a much different kid. They were much more competitive, pitch to pitch, inning to inning, really just showed a lot more care. I thought it was kind of a cool thing that he did.
That is neat. I'm going to steal that. And that's what great hitters do, right? We're talking about pitching, but that's what great hitters do, right? Good hitters try to win the at-bat. Great hitters try to win every pitch. So being able to compete each and every pitch. And look, if I'm doing that on the mound, I need my shortstop to do the same thing. I need my center fielder to do the same thing. I need my catcher to do the same thing. So we talk about not taking pitches off, right? I mean, if we're in the field defensively for 140 pitches this game, all of us better be competing for 140 pitches. We're going to lose. And it's hard. It's hard to do. And there, like you said, there's a lot of distractions.
So we touched base on this earlier, and obviously you guys are in a similar climate area as we are. It's I don't know what it is there. You're not in school tomorrow, Tim. It's maybe 10 degrees here, and it's been cold for a long time. Can you explain some of your training habits for your colder weather guys throughout the winter? Because you got to get them ready. I mean, they're starting high school baseball and youth baseball here in the next month and a half. So how do you guys for the Southern Indiana Tigers approach your off season, whether it be your throwing program buildup? When do you start implementing bullpens? When do you start arm care? Just if you can kind of give like a brief overview of how you guys approach it, that'd be awesome.
DJ, go first this time.
Well, you know, and I'm gonna let Tim talk about this as well, and kind of come in here later. But I think one of the things to touch on what we really do, David, I would say just like you guys there, we every year, Tim and I, as any of our programs are going, any of our off-season programs, our arm care program, our winter workouts, everything that we do every year, I think we look at what was really good, what was really effective, what do we need to change, do we need to go earlier, do we need to go later, and we've already started the conversation on what we think next year's program is going to look like because of, you know, what has changed. I mean, of course, COVID has changed everything, but what has changed? Like, what are the high school rules? When can they go a little bit earlier, and how do we get them ready and not interfere with, you know, okay, we want to do an arm care program, but our travel team wants to throw bullpens, our high school team wants to throw bullpens, you know, and we got to work around all those different things. And still, you know, and a lot of these athletes, you know, trust us and trust our opinions. So we got to really be able to figure out each year, how do we make it better? I'll let Tim can talk maybe even to some of the specifics that we've done, but I really think one of the things that we do look at is we learn. We learn every year, and I think that has shown up in any of our measurements that we've had year after year, and then also even the feedback from the players and the parents and different things like that. But we really try to learn each year. And like I said, I'll let Tim maybe touch on some specifics that he was thinking about. But I think here we are always just looking what works and what changes with any type of environment that we can help the athlete going into that given year, as well as their long-term process.
Sure. And you know, with our arm care and velocity class, of course, we have a fall class that leads right up, you know, a couple weeks shy of Christmas break, and then we start after the New Year's with another class that kind of butts us up to high school tryouts. And there's pros and cons to both. That's a question we get a lot. You know, what's the pro of doing the fall? What's the pro of doing the one in the spring? You know, the one in the spring that leads you right up to tryouts. That's got your arm ramped up and ready to rock. You know, one of the big pros for me with the one in the fall is that, one, it doesn't conflict, especially with our high school guys, as high schools start to do their workouts and that kind of thing. 'Cause of course, you got to show in front of your pitching coach at your high school with a bullpen and how to work that in with our 3-day-a-week arm care class. You know, but the one in the fall I like because it ramps us up. It gets us to January, and then the ability to get with your pitching coach, to get with a guy that any of our trainers that do lessons to kind of perfect that velocity, right? Because velocity is about throwing it hard. Now, what can we do with it when we get on the mound? We do a lot of long tossing indoors, you know, throwing into a net, and it's even hard with our high school kids trying to convince them that, you know, you're throwing at 300 feet, even though that net's only 6 feet or 10 feet in front of you. You know, but DJ hit the hardest one, and that's I think there's two challenges. One is the high school kids now. If they're in velocity class, they're doing 3 days a week with us. You know, you got to take some days off there, but then your high school team might be doing 2 or 3 days a week. So what does that look like? What do we need to do there? And then the other challenge is there's so many people, and I get it. Everybody loves a bullpen, right? And so getting them to understand that we want to ramp up to that, just like our arm care class. we're on ramping, we're blending, we're overloading, we're underloading, right? Just like Driveline and everybody else out there. But what you got to do that big picture too. So if you're throwing bullpens 60 pitches, a bullpen twice a week in December, I worry about your longevity when we get to May, when we get to June. I'd rather you do some things about arm care. Let's focus on maybe velocity, and hey, maybe we can mess with the third pitch using a high school kid, for example. So there's a lot of things to juggle there, and we just try to have conversations with parents, conversations with kids, conversations with coaches, and do the best we can.
How do you approach that with the 9 to 14 U age group? So the more like the U side, maybe the guys who don't work with professional coaches on a daily basis or even with their seasons. How do you approach that with them? Because what I see a lot of times, and I've seen it throughout the years, is those teams, they obviously practice as teams generally, and they are showing up and they go through hitting throughout November, December, when they kind of start to implement baseball again. And then the first time they start thinking about pitchers, what do?
On the mound.
Throw a bullpen. It's the first thing they do. There's no arm care buildup. They might have played catch a few times, and they just hop right into it. So how do you approach that with your younger guys?
Yeah. And DJ probably has more conversations with our Tigers coaches down here in Southern Indiana. We have meetings. We've had discussions with our coaches. But I try to have discussions with guys that at least go through the arm care class of the importance of that. Because that's an arm care and velocity class. It's not just for pitchers. I want catchers there. I want outfielders there. So getting them to all understand that we're ramping up. We're working on arm care, we're working on velocity, we're working on those free and constraints and being athletic and explosive and that kind of thing. So again, just trying to have those conversations with them. But they all fall in love with the mound, right? They think everything's got to be off the mound. They think everything's got to be to a squatted catcher. They think everybody's got to be, and it's got to be quantitative, right? Coach says throw 30. Well, my arm doesn't feel great today. Maybe I need to throw 15. Maybe I feel good and I can go 40. So learning how to do that is a challenge. And of course, they start tournaments in mid-March. So when did they start practice? And how long does it take to ramp up? And every kid's different too. So there's a lot of challenges there. We'll take any expertise or answers you have for us.
Well, here's just a quick question. And I think this might shock a lot of like the youth dads out there in the world and probably some of the youth coaches. I would tell pitchers at a younger age, you're going to have some sort of throwing buildup. Because let's assume that they've taken 2 months off after fall ball, haven't thrown a baseball, haven't picked up anything. So that arm's closed up. That arm is not nearly ready for any type of quick external rotation or anything of that nature. And we can get into what those terms mean here in a second. I would say any arm should have at least a minimum of 5 to 6 week throwing buildup. That is taking them through just some normal catch, upping their frequency every week, upping their effort, upping their distance, upping their duration, getting them then maybe ready for maybe a light 15, 20-minute or pitch bullpen with no focus on anything. Do you guys think differently than that, or do you guys think that that's kind of key?
I think that's key. And again, it's trying to educate, and getting people to understand that. And the other thing, going back to that pro throw phrase, when you think about that youth 13-year-old, when he plays 6 games on a weekend, Saturday he's first game 1 he plays shortstop, and then maybe game 2 an hour and a half later he throws 5 innings on the mound, and then he comes back on Sunday and he might be the starting catcher for game 1, and now he's back at shortstop again. So different than the POs later on in your baseball career, you don't have time. So getting them to understand that buildup is huge, because we can count your pitches if that's what you're into in those 5 innings on the mound. But what about the throws you're making, in the hole from deep short, just the balls that your first baseman's rolling to you in between innings? What about the throws that the catcher's making? So, and although those aren't all max effort throws, they're throws nonetheless, right? And so there's only so many bullets in that cannon. And so if we can build up to that, the better off we're going to be.
How long are your classes, DJ, your arm care classes that you guys run?
When we run the youth is 2 days a week for an hour. and then the high school is 3 days a week for an hour and a half. Now, inside of the high school, we do include a dynamic workout inside of that program.
And you did 6 weeks.
Oh yeah, 6 weeks for the youth, 8 weeks for the high school, and we encourage. I mean, if people want to do the multiple times, as Tim mentioned, and I'll touch a little bit on what we were just talking about. Tim mentioned that we're pro throw. You know, and I'm not going to say that we're, you know, that's the only philosophy or even it's the best philosophy. That's just what we've seen. That's what we like to teach. But going to the thing, you hear a lot of people like, I'm going to shut them down for a while. Okay. You know, there's a reason behind people maybe wanting to shut their kid down or, you know, whatever it might be. But if you shut them down, they're not going to be where they were the moment that they start back up. And I mean, to you guys' point, it's the education, and it's so difficult. Like, I mean, in fairness to any of the dads and the parents and the kids, I mean, they're playing a bunch of sports. School is all over the map. I mean, you know, like when we talked about, you know, our age or whatever, any of our practices were right after school, right? Not kids nowadays. They come home for 2 to 3 hours. They go back for something else, and then maybe they have to be at another practice. I mean, you know, I know my kids. I mean, they're 2 practices at 2 different times. You know, and you know, going all to the different things and maybe different sports is that, you know, is still going on. And I think it's so important to try to get the education out there. And you know, Tim and I are. You know, one thing we always try to say is we're available for a conversation and we're going to give you our opinion. And we've given several people our opinion, and then we watch them and they'll do the exact opposite. I mean, even the high school kids, right? I mean, last year we're like, hey, make sure you don't throw a bullpen. And they didn't even leave the facility before they asked the catcher to catch. Well, we're just going to throw 5 or 10. Well, 5 or 10 is we wanted 0. Zero.
Yeah. You just did 15 minutes of post throws.
Yeah, they cooled down.
Probably shouldn't go throw 10 curveballs to your catcher. Yeah.
And like I said, I just the education and the education for us. I mean, that's the same thing. I want to make sure, as Tim just alluded, David and you and I have talked, and you know, I'd like to get Tim more involved with you guys and you know anyone else you know inside of the Tigers organization. I think any education, any tricks, anything, you know, philosophies that people have. I mean, listen, we're not telling you in St. Louis you have to believe everything that we say. We just say this is what we've seen, just, you know, and I think this is the whole point of this interview series is, you know, this is what we've had success with. This is, you know, problems that we've seen. And that's why, I mean, this interview series has been so good that I've been paying attention to all of them. And like I said, and Spiker tries to get out there, if you guys have got questions, you know, please don't hesitate to get a hold of us and reach out. And it doesn't matter whether you're at you know, Cody out there in Vegas, give us a call. You know, don't call at 9 o'clock your time. We might be in bed, but you know, we'd love to have the conversations and hear opinions and some of the things that you know you guys have seen work. I mean, because Tim and I, as we mentioned a couple questions ago, we look every year at, you know, what are we missing? What can we add? You know, what is something we'd like to see incorporated into what we do?
100%. And that's ultimately what this is all about. This is about getting information out to people who are looking for it and be able to help and share ideas and thoughts of what's worked, what's not worked. I'm going to take away the pro throw saying, because I've stressed that a long time. We've always talked with players. It's like, if you view a game, pitching in a game, starting throwing 5 innings like running a marathon, you're not going to train by running a mile every other week. It's not going to work. So I'm definitely going to steal that phrase from you because I love that. I've got a couple kind of like rapid fire questions here. So these are more of like the common questions that maybe you hear a dad, a parent, a youth coach say. So I'm just picking up right into them. First off, this is probably the most famous question that I've been asked from a youth dad who I've taught their son for years. And it's, when do I start implementing my off-speed pitches? When do I start throwing a curveball? Because the common saying is, well, you see this kid, 11, 12, 13 years old, throwing a curveball. Well, hey, he's going to blow his arm out, guaranteed. or you got the coach is throwing a curveball for a 10U team and winning every game, and the kid's throwing 7% curveball. So when do you guys tell players that it's okay? Maybe it's an age, maybe it's a development plan, or maybe it's different for each kid. But when do you guys start to implement the off-speed pitches for those guys?
I want to go first. I want to go first, Tim.
All right.
Because I think even Tim and I are a little slightly different on this. I would touch on something else, and this is something I believe in. The same thing. My message is not always going to be heard on this one, no matter which dad or other coach that I talk to. Tim and I, one of the things that both of us teach, and we've heard it from the greatest of pitching coaches, is things about location and throwing strikes, right? So when you go out there, and I want my kid to learn how to throw a curveball. I think one of the things that Tim and I talk about all the time, still to the high schoolers this day, and they haven't heard it. Down is a location, So let's work on let's focus on some of those, and we want so bad to be able to teach the kids. Let's go back to the Greg Maddox. If you can throw strikes and put a baseball more on where you want it, you're going to be a way more effective pitcher because, first of all, I always talk about hitting's hard. Now, mixing some other things up, can be, is very effective. But, I still feel like, for me, this is just my opinion, a fastball and changeup at the youth age is really the only two pitchers that you need. Now, I don't know what the break is, of what an age. So to ask my opinion, I don't know that there's a specific age, but I also feel like if taught properly, any type of spinner, whether it be like a cutter or maybe even a curveball, if taught and thrown correctly, it's safe on the arm. Now, how many times you throw it, that's a different story. But I really just would love to see more people that are going to pitching coaches. I'd love to see them more bought into the overall mechanics and worried and stayed more focused on locations and potential changeups and where a changeup should be, right? I see a kid has came to me before, and I said, "What pitches do you throw?" And he says, I throw a fastball and a changeup. Well, he's 9 or he's 10, and he's gripping his fastball with 3 fingers, and he throws his changeup all of a sudden with 3 fingers too. And I'm like, you're not throwing a different pitch, So it's I'd love to hear Tim. Tim and I have talked about some of this. So I feel if taught correctly, it's very effective. At a certain age. I'm still probably thinking teenage, maybe 12. But I just wish more people would be focused on control and mechanics over top of trying to develop, because I've seen some really funky curveballs that are very effective at 12 and 13 that have no chance to be very good when they're 15. This pitcher's awesome at 12 because he has a pitch that nobody else has. He doesn't throw it correctly, but maybe it's effective. And then at 15, I'm not even going to talk about having arm issues. I'm just going to say, oh, look, here's comes his curveball because he does X. And, that kid, is getting hit all over the ballpark.
We agree for the most part. I think it's a developmental thing. I don't think there's an age. I don't sit on you can't throw a curveball till you're 15. I don't sit on let's throw it when you're 9. You got to learn how to locate a fastball first. And look, if you're throwing 70% curveballs at 9, you're going to get a lot of hitters out. But I don't think you're developing your fastball and velocity if you're throwing 70% curveballs. I think you get the second pitch you should learn is a changeup. I'm a strong believer in that. I think every hitter struggles with a changeup because everybody should be coming out of the same slot with similar spin versus your hands on the side of the ball, spinning something. So the older we get, the tougher that pitch is to identify. For me, once they can do those two things, usually that's not till 11, 12 anyway, at best. Then I'm okay to take a kid if the parent's okay with it, and we'll start learning how to spin one. But I'm really big on it can't be one of those fake curveballs out there that some youth coaches talk about, like, oh, this is one that his wrist isn't going to turn. We're really not spinning it. Therefore, it's safe. I don't agree. If you're going to learn how to throw a breaking ball, you need to learn how to throw it correctly, and I don't care what age that is. And then if you're going to let your kids throw it, even though I'm a big believer in, I let my pitchers and catchers call pitches and always have. If you're going to teach a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old to throw a curveball, you either need to be monitoring that yourself or you're calling pitches from the dugout, because that kid's going to fall in love with the swings and misses he's going to create. But I think as long as he learns to locate a fastball, throw a changeup properly, mechanics are pretty solid, I think start teaching.
Next question. What baseball tech are you guys high on, especially from the pitching side? With technology these days, it's going crazy with what's being really brought down from the major league level now to the youth and high school levels. What tech do you guys use, and what do you like?
Yep. So I'm old school with one. I like to use a lot of video, right? I don't care if it's just coach's eye or just your simple video camera on your iPad. But I think there's a lot of things that are tough to see with the naked eye. And then I think it's really important to teach kids and show kids, because most guys are visual learners, to teach them, things as simple as look what you're doing with your changeup versus look what you're doing with your fastball, right? Or let's video 5 pitches in a row. Look how inconsistent you are with your striking foot. Look how inconsistent you are with your front side. Look how inconsistent you are with your chest and chin isn't getting out over your front foot. So getting them to see that, because you could talk about it all day long. The other thing that I really like, and we got it from Coach Owens at Bellarmine, is who opened my eyes to it, is Pitch Logic. A little bit cheaper than Rapsodo, a lot cheaper than Rapsodo. And it's data that I like to use. There's so much data out there, data now that, data is good, but if you don't know what to do with it, what good is that data, right? So we're still learning things like rifle spin and all that kind of stuff. And of course, I know the higher the spin rate, typically the better. How do you teach higher spin rate? That we can debate that all night. I don't know that anybody knows the answer to that, but those are the two. I like to do just old school video and go through that with kids. And then I use Pitch Logic a lot.
Are you guys using, obviously you're using like all the different radar stuff, the pocket radars. Yeah. Do you start using that with younger guys? When do you start implementing that?
Absolutely. I do it, if I'm doing lessons with kids or group lessons with kids, I'll probably get that pocket radar out one every 2 or 3 lessons. And it's not just about velocity. It's efficient velocity, effective velocity. And something as simple as, hey, you're throwing your fastball 52 and your changeup's 50. That's a problem, right? And so now let's dive into that. Is it a fastball issue? Is it a changeup issue? And being able to tackle that. So I don't just use pocket radar for just sheer velocity. We try to use it for teaching points as well.
This is a spiker question, DJ, so I'm going to lead you off with it, okay?
All right.
I did not come up with these, but you know where his brain is. It gets a little tricky sometimes.
The last interview, I asked so many times I had to say, man, this is a tough question. So I'm ready. I'll prepare myself.
He makes you think. What is the most undervalued asset of a pitcher, in your opinion?
I think that's simple. I think it's the ability to throw strikes around the zone. With my team, and any of my players would come up to me or would be able to answer this question to you all the time, because I say it nonstop. Hitting's hard. I mean, in my opinion, hitting is hard. I mean, how many times have you went up as a hitter and hit something, a screaming line drive that the left fielder catches? You can't hit it any better than that, but you still got out. And in my opinion, I think so many people, as we've talked about some of these things, we've talked about breaking stuff. We've talked about velocity and maybe the ability to throw it by people and all that other stuff. The ability to throw strikes and the ability to give your team options to be able to make outs is, in my opinion, I didn't really specify whether this was youth or not, because hitters, of course, get better. But it's just the ability to go in there, throw strikes, give the team opportunity to be able to get outs. And I think a lot of people overlook that because, like Tim said, this 90 guy coming in throwing 92 that has hit 3 off the backstop and walked 6 and everything else. You look up and you say, hey, what a great pitching performance. You struck out 10 and we lost, 3-2. And then there was probably something like a 3-walk and an error and a little bloop single, and all of a sudden you lose, by a run or two. So, my opinion, I think just the ability to throw strikes is undervalued. I think everybody knows it's a value, but I still don't know that enough people, and I would even add in too, if you're gonna throw a 2-2 breaking stuff as you get a little bit older, the only way that you should be able to throw some type of breaking ball, or funky pitch, knuckleball, anything that you want at 2-2, is if you have the ability to come back and throw a strike at 3-2. And I think that is, yeah. So sorry, I'm just. Tim will tell you, I just absolutely, my team will tell you, I just absolutely can't stand walks. I think that's how you lose games, and you just underperform, and you take away a good day. You take away a good day by, maybe a little thing of where you got too cute, and because you wanted to get a strikeout. You wanted to strike out 7 in that game instead of getting in there and just getting some ground ball outs. It's a great question. Give Spiker the credit, but that's my opinion. I'm sure if you ask 10 other pitching guys that question, they probably all have a different answer, but I just think people need to throw more strikes nowadays.
And I do have a different answer because I had some time to think about it and you didn't. I think it's the being the very best at the other 10%. So PFPs, fielding your position, controlling the running game, backing up bases, all of those things that come into play are huge. If you're not the best at that 10%, that's the difference between winning a 4-3 ball game and losing a 4-3 ball game. So I think that being the best, taking pride in the other 10% of the game, is huge.
Awesome. Then our last Spiker question, and I'll lead off with you on this one, Tim. How does someone find and create their greatest differentiator on the mound, and then how do they become the ace on the staff?
Wow. We talked about it earlier. I think the greatest differentiator on the mound is your ability to compete, your ability to be a bulldog. I don't care if you're facing Mike Trout. You have to believe that you're better than that guy. I know all mounds are created a little differently, so how high the mound is, but however many inches that is, you're on that mound. He's not, right? He's down on flag. So you're taller than him, you're bigger than him, you're better than him. So you got to have that ability to even if you have to pretend it, if you have to psych your brain into believing it, but if you don't compete and you don't want to compete, there's no way you're going to be the ace on my staff, right? So I think that's huge. And then, I think about a pitcher back in the day, a lot of youth guys won't know, but like Jack Morris, for the Tigers, a long time ago, back in the 80s, Twins, his stats weren't always great, right? If you looked at the back of his baseball card, he'd have a 3.5, a 3.75 ERA, but he'd always win 20 games, right? I mean, his team clearly believed in him. He was a winner. And so you might not have the best stuff, but if you're going to go out and compete and win ball games for me, you're going to be my ace. So I think being a competitor and competing is the biggest differentiator.
BJ?
Tim got to disagree with me. I gotta agree like 100%. The going out and competing, and not only the competing part, staying in the game and having the other people around you want to do anything they can to help you out. If it's score you 6 runs, if it's lay out and make plays, and every single thing that they want to do to help you as a pitcher, you touch the ball every play, so it's a matter on being able, like Tim mentioned, like you don't have to. I seen a YouTube video, David, you might remember this, about 3 or 4 years ago. It was some small college, and some kid had never pitched before, but he came in there. He was like a senior, and they played in like their conference tournament. Ended up like he threw like all 3 games in this like conference tournament. He wasn't throwing but like 70 miles an hour, and they came in there. It was just some story, and they just kept pitching him. and they kept winning. Because in college you don't have like a pitch count, but the kid was like, he wasn't a pitcher. I wish I could find that, but I watched this whole thing, and I mean, it was just to watch the guys around them because they believed in this guy. They believed in this guy for years on year. While he was there, and then he gets in a game, like I said, not really a pitcher, knew how to throw it. I think the competition part is, how you become an ace. As people talk about a bulldog, you want that guy. You want that guy to go to bat, and that's how you get it. You want the guy that you want the guy that wants the ball, right? You want the guy that is like, okay, we're gonna go play the St. Louis Tigers top team from down here. I want to look at my guys, and this other kid's looking right at me, and I'm like, it's you. You're the guy that's gonna go get them that particular day. That's a great point, but
Yeah, no, my favorite dude growing up, obviously I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan. The guy I tried to emulate and I watched all the time was Chris Carpenter.
Yep.
And they said, every player said that when Carp had the ball, it was a different feeling in the clubhouse. That guy was just one of the best competitors that I've ever seen do it. I'll go to that back in that Game 5 of the NLDS against Roy Halladay of the Phillies, and I could watch that game 100 times because you saw two of the best guys compete, two teams that believed that there's no way they can lose, and I 100% agree that that's the biggest differentiator.
And there's a guy who hated to lose. I'm a Cardinals fan too.
Oh.
Carpenter hated to lose. You saw it on his face. And that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. And I always find that, not to drag that one out anymore, but I think if you asked your whole team, right? I have a roster of 13, and it's championship game. Your ace, you'll know it's your ace. You ask all 13 players who gets the ball. I think all 13 should have the same answer because they have that feeling you're talking about, David. Right? I mean, it's not a clubhouse, but it's in the dugout. There's a different feeling, right? We all have that belief that we're going to win this game no matter what.
Well, guys, I've taken up about an hour of your time. I mean, we've shared some awesome information, and that's what this interview series is really about. We said it, earlier on in this show, but that's what it's about. It's about sharing ideas, wins and losses. It's what hopefully this program stands for. We want to be able to help, obviously, our own coaches, our own parents, our own players, but hopefully, other people out there who are interested in bettering this game. So first off, any closing thoughts? And then I definitely want you guys to be able to share with the people who are watching and listening to this, how they can reach out to you and how they can get more information.
As Spikers mentioned before, I've got a simple email. It's dj@rawlingstigers.com. Would love to just, speak baseball to anyone that wants to, talk. Anybody's got any questions, about any of the pitching philosophies, love to hear them. I'm sure they can message us, on whatever platform that we share here, whether it be our own Twitter accounts or Facebook pages and different ways this goes out. It was great. Thanks so much for the talk today.
Yep, appreciate it, David. As you can tell, we love baseball. We can talk about it all night, right? So we appreciate this platform and ability to talk, and hopefully maybe we'll run into y'all this summer somewhere.
No doubt. Let's get that warm weather here soon.
That's right.
So. All right, fellas. Well, hey, thank you so much for listening to another interview series with the Rawlings Tigers. My name is David Birkby. We had DJ DeWees and Tim French on the call today. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode.